The singing scoundrel, Ronnie Biggs, rocking it in Rio in his years as Britain's most notorious fugitive. He was one of the 15-strong gang who stopped the Glasgow to London mail train in August 1963 and robbed it of £2 million, equivalent to 40 million today. Biggs's role in all this was to provide the driver to move the train that the gang had stopped down there to this point here. The trouble was the man he came up with simply couldn't do it. So someone in the gang hit the real driver, Jack Mills, and forced him to move the loco to this point, where the rest of the gang then offloaded the money.
I sank to my knees. The next thing I remember, I was on my knees on the floor.
Mills never fully recovered.
The footplate was filled with bandits then.
Within weeks, most including Biggs were picked up and were later jailed for up to 30 years. But in keeping with the audacity of the crime, Biggs made an almost pantomime escape from Wandsworth prison by scaling the wall and jumping down into a waiting truck. He ended up in Brazil, but his £150,000 cut from the robbery soon ran out, so he turned himself into a celebrity criminal, relishing and embellishing his minor role in the heist with no remorse.
I'm quite pleased with the idea that I was involved in it.
Why?
Well, because it's given me a little place in history, shall we say. You know, I've made a mark for myself.
For admirers, it was Biggs's establishment snubbing charm that helped manufacture his cheeky, chappy image.
It didn't matter whether it was a police officer, if it was another crook or some rock star. They all sort of fell in awe of this guy who had no airs and graces about him. He was just always Ron the whole way through, despite how famous he was.
Ill health eventually forced him home and into an 8-year prison spell, later released on compassionate grounds, for a man some say should never have been glorified.
He was a criminal part of a violent gang, and the Great Train Robbery was an unpleasant crime in which real people were hurt and stolen of their property.
By coincidence, the BBC is screening this film tonight. But like the raid itself, the drama gives Biggs a walk-on part. Rogue or rascal, Ronnie Biggs, seen here earlier this year, was a villain of the old school, a chancer who ended up in an iconic robbery and a small corner of criminal history. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News.